I've had the idea. But
Mr. Roar, still good.
I know, but it's working.
Okay.
So.
testing.
All right. Whoa, hey, that's live. Welcome to chapel. Especially, we have a whole bunch of people on the live stream today. We have some folks in the room, and you'll notice we're in a different setting. We're in the media center today, so excited about that. And so I'm going to invite some of our worship students, worship team up, and they're going to lead us in a song. And then I'm really excited about what we have going on in chapel today, and I'll get up and introduce that after we sing together. So I don't know if you want to stand at home. I can't see you. If you're at home, feel free to stand, but I'm going to ask if you're in the room, why don't you stand with us, please?
See?
All right. So I'm gonna invite Ms. Van to come up here. Get ourselves nice and distance here. So last spring, if you can think back, most of us found ourselves quickly thrown into isolation without even really knowing what was happening. We were at school on a Thursday. Everything was kind of normal, and then it was like, boom, Friday, everything just shuts down without even really knowing what's happening. And we had no time to prepare ourselves, right? It just so quickly happened. And at first, I don't know about you, but it was a little bit exciting. It's like sleep in a little more, do class in pajamas, sit on the couch, you know? So it was a little bit exciting at first. But over time, isolation starts to set in. And it was enhanced by the fact that we were under a state lockdown, right? So you weren't allowed to really go anywhere, or weren't supposed to. And all of a sudden, things start to change. Our relationships changed. Some of us got cut off from people that we were used to seeing every single day. And that had a drastic effect. Our rhythms were changed. What we were used to doing significantly altered. And a lot of us, whether we knew it or not, just all of a sudden found ourselves lonely, right? In of a new normal, as best as we can call it normal. And you know, some of you have been live streaming. Those at home have been live streaming all year long, and so you've been learning what it is to be a remote learner. Many of you have experienced quarantine at some point in the year, and so you did it. And there it goes. You did a 2-week stretch. You did a 2-week stretch at some point, and so you had to learn how to quarantine and isolation while you're watching your friends or colleagues, because some of it is teachers, carry on with life. And now the majority of us are learning virtual. Okay. Mr. Rohr to the rescue. Thank you. And the majority of us are learning this virtual setting, right? Doing school and sometimes life in this new setting of isolation. And to be honest, it can be lonely. And the reality is, though it's obviously heightened right now, isolation and loneliness are not just limited to a global pandemic. There will be times in life that you will experience. Thank you, sir. There'll be times in life where you will experience isolation and loneliness, and you're not planning on it. Ask those who have graduated and gone off to college, or have changed jobs, or have gone to a new church, or have moved unexpectedly, and all of a sudden find themselves being isolated, and all of a sudden find themselves lonely. So today we wanted to just spend some time talking about what most of us are probably experiencing right now, but also in reality may experience at some point. And so we had a couple ideas of how we wanted to do this. So first, I wanted to invite Mrs. Hudberg. Why don't you come join us? And Mrs. Vanderkoppel is going to help kind of moderate a conversation with her.
Thank you, Mrs. Hudberg, my favorite Canadian. Let's a round of applause for her. I don't know how many of you know her story, but she was willing to share with us just a little bit about her experience with loneliness. So, could you just tell us briefly your story of moving from Michigan to from Canada to Michigan?
Sure. My husband is from Grand Rapids, and I grew up in Nova Scotia on the east coast of Canada. My husband went to school to university in Canada, and that's how we met. And then we went our separate ways after our undergrad degrees. I finished my art education, and he moved back to the US. We kept in touch, started dating, and got married. and then moved here. We had to pick one of the countries to live in, and I was interested in seeing what it was like to live in the US. So we moved here, and my first 6 months here were very different. I didn't have a status yet. I should point out, when you marry someone from a different country, you don't automatically have citizenship to that country. I know there's some misconceptions sometimes. What you have is you're eligible to apply for a status. And so during that time, I was a visitor and waiting for my employment authorization and like a temporary spousal visa, basically. So I couldn't work, couldn't go to school, couldn't be insured under him, so I had to buy my own expensive insurance. And it was just a really strange time of feeling on hold while everyone else's lives were feeling normal to me, and a little bit like now in some ways. So I learned a lot from that time. We can talk a little bit more. Okay. And I learned how to feel at home again is when life starts to function like home. So we found a church family. I started volunteering at the Grand Rapids Art Museum. They have a good volunteer program, and I taught some classes there. I signed up at a local library branch to help people who are learning English, have conversations, that kind of thing, and connecting with other people made all the difference at that time.
So, since COVID now, and your family is still in Canada, correct? Mm-hmm. How has this affected you over the last few months?
Again, a really different kind of time. In March, the Canadian border closed to visitors, including family members. So my last visit home was last summer, 2019, for a solid month. It was wonderful. And we obviously stayed home this summer, like many of you. So it's been a different time. I should point out my brother lives, and his family live in Ontario. My sister lives in Mexico with her husband, and my parents live in Nova Scotia. So we just haven't been able to see each other. But it has been a time, a really nice time, where my own kids, my two boys and my husband and I have started some new traditions, had some really quality family time. We've kept in touch, as many of you have, virtually with family who are far away, and have found that it's just been a nice opportunity to do other things, rely on God, learn that I don't have to be in control. There's been a lot of good lessons along the way. It's been a time not only to lament what I don't have right now, but to have some quality family time.
So for students right now who are experiencing loneliness or isolation, what kind of advice would you give them, having gone through what you've been through of being away from your family and moving to a new country?
The advice I would give is two things, actually. Reach out to other people and learn their stories. This will benefit you and benefit them too. When I started volunteering teaching, that was good for me, and it was good for others. I think I benefited from it more. I thought, well, I can at least use what I do and know, but I think I benefited from that even more. Another thing is be creative. Like, we're all creative in different ways. That's the way God made us. This is a great time to explore that and see what you enjoy making and doing, and it's just a really nice outlet. Write letters, connect with your grandparents. Many of our grandparents are isolated right now. It's a nice time to write them a letter.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to invite Mr. Magley up now. Mr. Magley is a student teacher in history. If you haven't met him yet. And the reason we asked Mr. Magley to come up is he recently experienced quarantine, but it was during a time when really most other people weren't. And so now everybody's kind of having a common experience, but your isolation was while most people were back here in school. So he was willing to let us ask him a few questions about that. So first, I just want to ask you, while you were in isolation, was there anything that surprised you about your time of isolation?
Yeah, I thought when it started that it would be like super easy and just like a 2-week break for me to watch TV and sit on the couch and do whatever I wanted, but it was like difficult after like 3 days because I ran out of stuff to do and I was just laying on the couch and it was just lost in like, what do I do today? I guess I'll just lay here, have nothing else to do. So it was difficult in terms of like mentally exhausted, but not doing anything. So just kind of like, well, another day, no purpose for this day. What am I gonna do? I just didn't really think that it would be very hard for me to not find things to be able to do, but it was, which was weird. That's what surprised me.
Yeah, as a way to disrupt your rhythms, right?
Yeah.
And then it's hard to recreate your rhythm so quickly. I guess, how did your time in isolation help you appreciate the community that you have in your life now?
A lot. It really made me realize like how much I rely on other people and how much I need a community around me. Just people praying for me, people that are there for me. Like my parents would call me, and different guys from college would call me and see how I'm doing, which is a really big pick me up of like, oh, actual human conversation. Like people actually care about me. This is great. So it really made me realize that I can't really do it on my own. And obviously it's something like I knew, but it really hits home when you're just isolated and you haven't seen another person for 10 or 14 days, however long it was. But yeah, it really made me realize that other people care about you and are there for you, and it's really important to have those people there that can help you, give you some motivation to keep going and finish out your isolation or quarantine period.
Yeah. And same question we asked for Mrs. Hedberg. What advice would you give to our students today and those that are watching on live stream that may be feeling isolated or just feeling lonely?
Yeah, in terms of like being quarantined, I think what helped me the most was having like a set schedule. Like if I can just, or not a set schedule, but like a checklist of like things to do for that day. Even if it's something small, like I actually like did some push-ups, or I actually read my Bible, read my devotional this day. Just little things that help you feel like you actually have done something and keep you motivated. And then in terms of like feeling just regular isolated or lonely, I think reaching out and just caring about other people can help get yourself off of your mind. And so you're actually worrying about other people and making them feel good, and that can help you feel good as well.
Thank you so much. We give it up for Mr. Magley. Appreciate you sharing with us. And then now Mrs. Vanderkoppel is going to talk about some best practices.
So after listening to Mrs. Hedberg and Mr. Magley, there were a lot of best practices you probably caught in what they experienced and the ways that they coped, right, with isolation and loneliness. And so I'm just going to provide some really practical things that can help with anxiety when we're isolated and we're lonely. Just kind of two things to keep in mind is that we need to focus on things that we know and things that we can control with God's help, okay? Some of the things that we know can provide us a sense of order and a sense of purpose in our lives. And Mr. Magley spoke to that, right? He talked about a routine. And with the awesome way that North Point's providing you with that opportunity of a routine is having our 7 hours a day. And from the students that I've talked to, this has been awesome. They appreciate it because there is a sense of normalcy in that 7-period day. Having chapel feels normal to us. Those are all things that keep us grounded during this time of isolation. Going to bed at a normal time and getting up at a normal time can help. Getting enough sleep and eating and exercising well. Like I said, these are really practical things, but sometimes we tend to forget. Those are the things that we know that we can do. And then God gives us choices, right? Things that we can control. Some of the things that we can control is where we study, where we take our classes. Are you at a desk in your bedroom? Probably not a good thing to be laying on your bed. Are you by distractions? Things that will keep you from focusing on your classwork, such as video games. Stay connected. Mr. Magley talked about that, and Mrs. Hubbard too. And this is something you guys are really, really good at, so it's kind of simple for you guys. You're great at snapping. You're great at texting, messaging, and I would encourage you to keep that up in an appropriate manner. Study groups are great. You know, even though you can do your homework by yourself, sometimes just doing a hangout or a FaceTime with a friend to do homework, that's a really great way to stay connected. And reaching out to each other. Mr. Magley talked about that. He had friends that called him, hey, how are you doing? How are things going? So those are things that we can control, right, with God's help. Something else that we need to know about ourselves is that we need to know how we're feeling. How are we doing through this? Are you having a high day or are you having a low day? And practice self-care. It's okay if your class ends early to go take a break, go take a walk, take a little nap, set your alarm though. Listen to music, get some fresh air. These are all things that we can do to take care of ourselves during this time. And this is super, super important. I want to end on this. It's okay if you're not doing well. It really is okay. You and other students are struggling too through this isolation. Please know that the counseling department is still here for you and your teachers are still here for you. So please say something if you are struggling. I can also share with you later too, but there's a lot of different apps on your phone that you can use right now for stress, anxiety, things that can calm you. There's a ton of resources out there that I can share at a later time. But just know that we are here for you and you are not alone, even though it feels lonely right now.
Thank you, Ms. Van Koppel. I want to put a picture up here of, this is a German pastor and theologian named Dietrich Bonhoeffer. And maybe you've heard of him before. Bonhoeffer was famous for being anti-Nazi, German pastor and theologian, so you can see how that would be a problem. And he spoke out against Hitler and against the persecution of the Jews. Bonhoeffer later was put in a concentration camp and experienced intense isolation while being in prison, and eventually he was hanged. Bonhoeffer wrote probably one of the most incredible books also on community. And so from Bonhoeffer, we have a person who experienced incredible isolation, and in that isolation understands the need for intense community. And this quote has been kind of just bouncing around in my brain. And this is what he said. He said, "Let him who cannot be alone beware of community, and let him who is not in community beware of being alone." I know it seems like a lot in what he's saying, and it seems like a little bit of a contradiction, but here's what he meant, because he goes on to explain it. Bonhoeffer goes on to say that in a sense, when we can never be alone, when we just surround ourselves all of the time with noises and feelings, this is a challenge, right? We always have to have people around. We always have to have something going on. This is a problem, right? And it's never more true than the world that we live in right now. We really never have to be alone. I never have to be alone if I don't want to be. I never have to be bored if I don't want to be. I always have something to entertain me. And so there's a sense which I really don't ever have to be truly alone. And so what happens is isolation becomes this really true fear. Like, isolation is the real fear. And one of the reactions is to just fill the space with any and everything that I can to just avoid isolation at all costs, right? More noise, more feelings, more sound, more entertainment, as much as I can. But I would say this, and I want to make sure you hear me properly. Isolation at times actually can be a gift. It actually can give us an opportunity for what we would call, and the word I would use is solitude. Isolation sounds negative, but solitude is not a negative thing. But I will say this, solitude, and the word practice is important there. Being alone, being still. And I know a lot of us are like, being alone, being still, why would I ever want to do that? That sounds terrible. In Luke 5:16, it says this: Jesus often, and I love the word often, Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. I honestly believe this. Some of you will meet God in the solitude. And I'm not going to call it isolation. I'm going to call it solitude. If you let isolation become solitude. Some of you will meet God in the solitude. And maybe I should say the other way around. Some of you will find that God is going to meet you in the solitude. Because God is more still small voice than fire and thunder on mountains. And it's hard to hear the still small voice sometimes. And we need the solitude. We need the noise to turn down sometimes. to be able to hear him. And solitude is a place where sometimes we can do some deep soul searching, and that can be scary, right? God, search me and know me. These are David's words. See if there be any offensive way in me, and lead me on the right way. Lead me on the path that's everlasting. Solitude may be just what we need, and I say we, to get away from the hurries of life, to sometimes do a course correct on the path that we're on, right? It gives us this opportunity to kind of pause and see where we're going and see where we're headed, because sometimes we're so busy that we can't see it. And to pause and go, hold on a second. I need to course correct a little bit here. And in that solitude, in that moment, we can allow God to do that work. And so I want to urge you, isolation is a real thing, but I want to urge you to also see the gift of solitude, to see the gift of having time to seek God and let God seek you, in a sense, during this time. But also notice Bonhoeffer says the reverse as well, right? Let him who is not in community beware of being alone, because isolation actually can really be dangerous too. It has a way of putting a magnifying glass on some of our greatest struggles. And I don't know if you've experienced this. I know I have experienced this, to be honest. When I'm by myself for too much time, the things I struggle with the most, or the things that I don't think I struggle with anymore, all of a sudden they rear their ugly head again, right? The sins or the struggles or those dark corners all of a sudden start to grow. Because isolation has a way of putting a magnifying glass on our struggles. And so, in a sense, what he's saying here is we need community. We need other people, like what Mr. Magley said, real people, a whole community of them, people who love us and care for us and want what's best for us, people that we can reach out to and say, look, the isolation is getting to me. I'm struggling with this. People that will guide us on the right path, that will speak wisdom into our life, okay? Not just affirm the dumb things that we're doing, but will tell us, stop doing the dumb things you're doing. And I'm talking about myself as well. My favorite social media is Twitter. I know you're probably like, you're on social media? My favorite one is Twitter. And I follow a bunch of people but here's the reality. I follow a bunch of people that I believe I have relationships with, but I really don't have relationships with them. They don't really know who I am, apart from the 280 characters that I post every once in a while. And the reality is I don't really know who they are, and they don't know the struggles I'm going through, and I really don't know the struggles they're going through. It's a very superficial relationship. But the friend who texted me last week, because he knew I was going through something really hard, the same friend who's willing to say when I'm overreacting or being petty about something in my life, that's the kind of community I need. And I would urge you to find, if you don't have it, to find that kind of community and to cling and to fight for that kind of relationship, right? That's what we need. So solitude can be a gift, but community is something we desperately need, and the two can work together. So see the gift of solitude and find God in the quiet and lonely places, but cling hard to good community, but also be good community to other people as well. Okay? And like Mrs. Vanderkoppel said, be willing to tell other people, I'm not okay right now. And there's a lot of people, especially here, that are willing to be on the other end of that conversation. All right? Let me pray for us. God, thank you that you have made us for relationships, first with you. God, thank you that we truly are never alone. God, that you, like David said, where can I go from your spirit? I can go up to the depths, I can go down, I can go to the east, I can go to the west, and there you are, God. We can never be away from you. God, thank you for your goodness to us. Thank you for your spirit that dwells in us. And God, thank you that you call us your children. Lord, and thank you that you've made us for relationships with one another. And I pray that during this time, especially for those that are feeling isolated, for those that are feeling just a true sense of disconnection and loneliness, Lord, that you would draw out the real relationships in our lives. And for those that are doing real well right now, that's a gift. So thank you for that, and help us to search out those in our lives that are not doing well and to be community for them. And in these quiet moments, Lord, in the isolation, in what feels different right now, God, we would ask that you would help us to see the solitude as a gift where we can seek after you and allow you to seek after us. And God, we just ask that you continue to just move in your people and in this place, God. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you all. You are dismissed to third period. Have a great day.